Really weird stuff going on right now. So we're actually starting the show kind of now, but you'll notice there wasn't like the intro music or the fancy graphics, and we're just kind of half-assing this. And that's because despite the fact that we were once again voted the best public access TV show in Austin, there was a mess up in the scheduling, and so there's a lot of things you're actually going to hear twice because here's what's going to happen. The show's not going out on cable until 5:30, an hour from now, but we have the studio for the whole time. So we're just going to take live calls from the internet audience who are watching on the stream, he said as the phones started lighting up. Wow, all 4 lines are full. Sorry you missed your shot. We're going to take live calls for about 45, 50 minutes or so. I've been talking to him.
We're on live.
Well, we're on live. On cable? Well, welcome to the joys of live TV. Yeah, somebody find out when this show's over since we didn't know when it was on. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Atheist Experience Live. I'm your host, Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week is Jen Peeples. I think somebody's doing this on purpose because what has happened is we have once again won the Reader's Opinion Poll in the Austin Chronicle as the best public television program in Austin, Texas. And shockingly, on the same week that we win the award, we are completely screwed when it comes to what time are we going on. So, yeah, there was a mix-up in the schedule, which has evidently been unmixed, and we're now live. See, and I wasn't prepared for any of the opening stuff or anything else. All the lines are full, which means I need to tell Steve to dump a couple callers and go back to having lines open for theistic and contentious callers. I'm assuming Steve can hear me. This is a live public access program sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin. You can find out more about the ACA by going to www.atheist-community.org. There's a frequently asked questions page there. You can also email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself, the co-host, some of the people behind the scenes. We cannot possibly answer all the email that comes in, but we do make every effort to read all of it, and we appreciate all of it. Occasionally we will get people emailing for advice about fairly serious subjects, and we'll do what we can to address those. People offering suggestions and criticisms about the show, which we desperately try to take to heart, although, as you can see from the way things are going today, not only do we have problems with audio, but there's miscellaneous problems with studio and scheduling as well. You can find all that information at the website. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors 2 weekly internet podcasts that are audio only. Nonprofits broadcast Saturday mornings at 10:30 Central. You can go to nonprofitsradio.com for more information about that program. And Godless Bitches is the new podcast that is recorded on Monday and usually posted Monday night or Tuesday. You can go to godlessbitches.podbean.com to get information about that podcast. But there's a ton of stuff that's been going on, and I apologize. We're going to have to kind of make the introduction a little longer, especially since it caught me by surprise. Last weekend was the Texas Freethought Convention / Atheist Alliance America Convention, and I was down there, as was Jen, and Jen agreed to help me out at the last minute. We'll probably talk more about that in just a minute. This weekend, there was a mix-up in the schedule. There was 2 canceled shows while there was work being done in the studio. There will be, supposedly, a live television show next Sunday, the 23rd, I believe it is. There will not be a live show on the 30th because I'm getting married on the 30th, and it turns out that most of the people that I invited had to do a television show, so I canceled it.
Well, the other thing is, under the new studio rules, we don't get fifth Sundays in the studios anymore.
Yeah, it's
so we couldn't do it anymore.
We get 4 Sundays a month. This turned out to be a fifth Sunday. We would have had to specially request that Sunday, and what we did was we just opted not to request it so everybody could come down to the wedding, get drunk, and party, and things like that.
Which means your timing, the date you picked for your wedding was just awesome.
I know.
Because doesn't conflict.
I'd like to claim that I did that on purpose, but in actuality, October 30th is also Beth's birthday. She was desperate to have a wedding in the fall, and this was the one Sunday that the venue had open. So if we were still Christians, this would be God looking out for us in every possible way for the wedding.
Yeah, it would.
It really would. So what's going to happen is there will probably not be an episode of Nonprofits until early November. And I realize that there hasn't been an episode since like September 17th. And it's just that there's so much stuff going on that we just called basically a month-and-a-half hiatus, because not only am I getting married October 30th, but Russell and Lene are getting married the following weekend on Saturday, which we're not going to be doing a show that week. So you can look for Nonprofits to return in a month. And I'm not sure about Godless Bitches and what Beth's going to do with the schedule, but I'm betting you will not have many episodes of Godless Bitches until the beginning of November as well.
Oh, there's not one tomorrow?
There may be.
Okay.
You know more about it than I do.
I think we're going to do one tomorrow.
It's very, very possible.
There's a topic out there, so.
Cool. All right, so I won't keep this going on while we're queuing up calls. And I don't know, did you hear me earlier, Steve, about clearing 2 lines for theists again? Cool. Awesome. You want to talk a little bit about Freethought Convention quickly?
Amazing experience. Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens under the same roof, on the stage together Saturday night. It was unbelievable. And one of the things I was really impressed with was that after the banquet, Christopher Hitchens spent a little time with an 8-year-old girl who had asked a question of him during the question and answer period. He didn't feel like he could address it properly in that forum, and so he had a little private conversation with her and her mother afterwards, and I thought that was really very generous of him.
Yeah, and it actually ended up making her famous, and the book list
has
gone viral over the internet.
Yeah.
I wrote a quick write-up. It's not a quick write-up. I quickly wrote an unedited write-up of the weekend. It's long because the weekend was long. And one of the things I noted is that I would have expected when I saw Hitchens come in, that it would be, I mean, there was questions as to whether or not he was even going to show up. And it's kind of, fortunate that he was actually in Houston getting treatment from a facility there.
Yeah.
But when I saw him walk in, I was sitting up at one of the tables up front, and some people started clapping. And I turned and looked to my left, and here's Richard Dawkins walking in. I thought, oh, that's nice. We're going to give Richard shows up late for dinner, so we're going to give him a round of applause.
Yeah.
And so I started clapping. And I noticed everybody started getting up on their feet. And I was like, well, I like Richard as much as anybody else, but he's not getting up to speak yet. He's just showing up for dinner. Is this really worth a standing ovation? And I kind of turned back to my left, and I saw Hitchens.
Yeah.
And even though I had seen a picture of him from the night before, it was still kind of surprising. He's lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
He looks weak, but he also, it's almost indescribable. He was glowing. Everybody who saw him was glowing, and I half expected him just to walk up, sit down. Richard would give his speech and offer him the award, and then I expected Hitchens would take the award, maybe say a couple of words, and then sit back down, and everybody would, just spend the rest of their lives saying, hey, I was there that night that he got that. Instead, he spoke. First of all, Richard gave an absolutely beautiful award speech for him, a little keynote there. And Hitchens got up and spoke for I don't know how long, and then sat down, and the two of them took, well, I would say the two of them took questions. I think there were like 2 questions that Dawkins chimed in on. And the rest of it was Hitchens just taking questions. And then when his time was up, like anybody's going to tell him to leave, he was like, no, I'll continue for a while longer. So I think he took 3 or 4 questions even after time was up.
Yeah, he even made a comment that I haven't had an opportunity to make very many public appearances lately, so if you don't mind, I'll just stay a while longer.
Yeah.
Of course, no one minded.
Nobody minded at all. It was a really good weekend. By the way, this was a joint convention, as I mentioned, between Texas Freethought Convention and Atheist Alliance America. Next year, there will not be a joint convention. Atheist Alliance America convention will be in the Denver area, is what Nick Lee, president of AAA, announced in, I think, the September timeframe. The Texas Freethought Convention will be in Austin. The date has not been set, and I'm going to do what I can to work with them. There's a bunch of us that are eager to, help out and help organize this event. Yeah, it's going to be the 2012, the end of the Mayan calendar, and we're going to try and do a bunch of fun things. I was actually on the schedule for 2 different events at this past one, a panel discussion on growing local organizations, and then it was in the program listed as Matt Dillahunty, Atheist Experience, podcast ? Was what was on the website.
Yeah.
So it seemed like nobody really knew what I was supposed to do, including me. And so I had worked out a talk on prophecy, and there were so many people who came up that thought we were going to be doing a live version of the show that I ditched that idea fairly quickly. And fortunate for me, Jen showed up Friday evening and agreed to help out. And what we did was basically a mock version of the show. It's impossible to do this show at the Hyatt. There's something about a live call-in show that you can't really do from a hotel ballroom. I mean, even with Skype, I would have had to, like, I don't know, call up theistic friends of mine and have them call in. So what we decided to do instead, and I believe they record everything. There's going to be DVDs available of the entire convention. But we basically, I talked for a few minutes, and then we took questions from people as if they were callers, and had a good time with that. There was a lot of other things going on. There's so much that I ended up missing, so I'm actually looking forward to getting DVD copies of the event as well.
Yeah, same here.
But they've released. You can actually watch Hitchens talk from the banquet. There were some bootleg copies that ended up on YouTube. They've been taken down overall because there were professional photographers and videographers there filming the event, and that is going to be posted. I got an email from Paul Mitchell the other day saying that was going to be posted, freely for everybody. But I don't know. You want to go ahead and start hitting calls?
I had something I just wanted to talk briefly about here.
Sure.
There's this. This came out in the news this week. There's a teacher in New Jersey named Vicki Knox. Her name's already out there, so I'm not putting out anything that isn't already out there. She had posted some, anti-gay slurs on her Facebook page. And so now she's taken some heat for it because she's a high school teacher in New Jersey. And especially in light of the kid, Jamie Rodemeyer, who just killed himself about a week ago after participating in the It Gets Better campaign. He was bullied at school. Not this school, but nonetheless. So anyway, she's taking some heat about it. And, of course, what you post on your Facebook page, I come down on the side of, this is a First Amendment right. You can do anything you want to on there. So she's within her rights to post whatever anti-gay slurs she chooses to based on her religion. But she is not immune from criticism for that. So just because you have a First Amendment right to say stupid things doesn't mean that you have a First Amendment right to be protected from people pointing out that you said something stupid and hurtful. But I pulled up this article on, it's actually some Christian website, and they're defending her on this website. What's interesting about this is one of the comments, and I'm just going to read it to you. This is what goes through the minds of people whose minds have been warped by religion. This person says, "I do not agree with homosexuality, and I commend Ms. Knox." Let's see. God is merciful in giving them time to repent. Babylon is here, and Sodom and Gomorrah is flaunting all kinds of perversions. This world is dying, and Satan's time is short. God loves the sinner, but he hates the sin. I am disgusted with all of the evil in the world and can't wait till all of it is destroyed forever. So there's your message of love and
just feel the love
and Christian benevolence there. They can't wait for this world to be destroyed forever. And these are the kinds of people who should not ever be teaching children or have any responsibility for guiding the thoughts of young children.
Or voting or involved in legislature. But really quickly, since we don't know for sure if we're going to go off the air in 45 minutes or an hour and 45 minutes, the ending of the show may be strange. I think the plan is we're going to do a wrap up and then see if we're still on the air, and if we are, we're going to keep going. But I want to go ahead and get to callers because there's been kind of a paucity of shows lately, and that may continue. So let's go with Andy in Dublin. How are you?
How you doing, Matt? How you doing, Jen, as well?
Doing well,
Good.
thanks.
I'm just going to quickly ask a question, and then I'm going to hang up because I'm running up a massive phone bill here.
Yeah.
I'm calling for the other side of the farm.
It makes you my favorite caller. Go ahead.
I just want to know what your views are on the taxation of the non-charitable activities of religious organizations, both in North America and in Europe.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Tax the heck out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my view on this is that if a church takes in donations from people, that should be tax-free, just as it is for any nonprofit organization. However, if a church owns real property, like a building or vehicles or whatever, those should not be tax-free. And the reason for that is that if a church has a building that they have their services in, that building is protected by local fire departments. They get city services in the form of, for example, roads, other infrastructure from the city. They get police protection. There's a whole lot of public things that go into facilitating what that church is doing. And those things aren't free. Taxpayers pay for those, and churches should have to pay for those as well. My feeling on that is that tax-exempting churches like this is actually subsidizing a church, and it should be unconstitutional.
Yeah, my take on it's real simple. The tax-free status and the other specialized or the other special treatments that religions get is a violation of the Establishment Clause, and the only reason it hasn't gone away is primarily because we live in a predominantly religious country and as a matter of tradition. And I think it's a violation for two reasons. One is that it is a special treatment for religions, but also it puts the government in the position of declaring which superstitious set of beliefs or set of superstitious beliefs qualifies as a religion and which doesn't. Mm-hmm. So the long-standing religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, etc. Well, if you just say, "Hey, we're a Christian church," well, bam, there's your tax-exempt status. But if you're a newfangled religion, like Scientology was, they had to fight to be accepted as a religion. And then there are other groups that might not get that status because the government will not recognize them as a religion. Perhaps it's just a handful of people, a very tiny single church congregation with some, very specific beliefs, and the government says, no, we're not going to recognize you as a religion. That, to me, is clearly a violation of the Establishment Clause because the government is now in position of saying, this is a religion and qualifies, this is not. This is a religion and qualifies, this is not. And so the easiest solution is the one that's also the most fair, which is you go ahead, if you're going to tax, and if you're going to allow tax exemptions, you make every organization, religious or not, qualify, just as 501c3s do, open their books and be subject to audits from the IRS. Your books are publicly available, and you can have a tax-free exemption, for example, for, say, the charitable portion of your organization. But, as Jen pointed out, not in the building and the land and the property and you're just doing a regular church service. We went to a mega church in Houston while we were down there. And we were talking about just how much it must cost just to keep the lights on and get that place running for 3 services on a Sunday. And there's a burden there, and they have to bring in a lot of donations, but they're also getting a lot of help from the federal government by not having to pay taxes on any of that. And I don't see that the sermon, the propagation of a religious message, is anything that's in the public interest or should deserve any sort of tax-exempt status.
Well, especially if you make statements like the evil in the world is all going to be destroyed forever.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a public service message. Okay.
But hey, let's move on. We got Emilio and Dumfries.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hi.
Pretty good.
What do you got for us?
Well, I just came across this pretty interesting argument for the existence of God, and I just want to get your guys' opinions on it.
Can I ask something first?
Sure.
Are you a theist or an atheist?
Well, I actually find this argument pretty convincing, so I'd say I'm pretty much on the verge of becoming a theist, I suppose.
Really? So, okay,
well,
because that kind of answers my second question. Normally, if you had said you were a theist, I was going to ask if this is the reason that you're a theist. Because there's a problem that comes up over and over again where people will present an argument that they think may be convincing to somebody else, but it's not the reason that they believe. And I want to know the reason people actually believe. But if you think that this may actually convince you that there's a God, by all means, let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, well, anyways, yeah, let's get to the argument. Anyways, so I was talking to this person, this theist. I know he's really intelligent, like me. He used to be an atheist, and he basically argued non-contingent concepts are either necessary or impossible. So the concept of God is either necessary or impossible. Impossible in the sense that it's contradictory. If something's contradictory, then it's impossible, right? So if the concept of God is non-contradictory, then it's necessary, as long as it's non-contingent. As long as the idea of God is non-contingent.
Okay, how do you prove that non-contingent concepts are either necessary or impossible?
Yeah, I see what you're saying there, but the idea of non-contingency kind of, it's rationalistic, first of all, so it proves itself, because non-contingency, by its very nature, is something that doesn't exist for any other reason besides itself, besides the fact that it's non-contingent.
So you're using non-contingency in this case to say that it's contingent upon its own truth?
Well, if something is non-contingent...
You're contingent upon what?
No, that's the point.
It's not contingent upon anything, because there's no such thing as a concept that isn't contingent upon anything, because they are contingent upon a mind.
Well, I suppose if you're an empiricist, you believe that.
Well, you can't have a concept without a mind.
Well, that's a more fundamental problem. What are our sources of knowledge? Is it our sensory experiences, or is it our reasoning?
I don't know that that's mutually exclusive. I'm not a fan of pure reason as a path to truth. I am a fan of confirming evidence that we get by our senses. But I don't know what that has to do with what you're calling non-contingent concepts.
Well, I thought that was more fundamental. What you were bringing up, I think, is actually another. I agree. It's another conversation entirely.
Yeah, and I'm kind of lost on the more fundamental aspect. I don't know what that means. That's kind of like
I mean, like you're talking about sources of our knowledge. Is it based upon, an empirical view of that our knowledge, the path to knowledge or true knowledge, is through mind or sensory, like the brain or whatever, or is it just our powers of reasoning and understanding?
And again, I'd say it's reason and evidence.
Yeah, those aren't mutually exclusive.
Okay, well, I guess, first let's settle the contingency, because I don't know if you really got that.
I don't want to be rude about this, Emilio. I really don't. But it sounds like you don't really understand the argument well enough to present it and explain it. And for that case, even if it were true, or even if we had no refutation of it, I don't see why why you should be convinced that it was true. And even if it turned out to be true, what exactly is it that it convinces you of? Because how many God concepts are there, and aren't you then bound to accept that all of them, if you accept that the God concept is necessary, that all of them are necessary, and now you're in the position of accepting mutually exclusive God concepts. That alone should show you that there's something seriously wrong with the argument, even if you don't comprehend all the subtleties of it.
I don't know if that all God concept thing really makes sense. My idea of God is the only thing I take from Anselm is his idea of God, which is the ends perfectissim, whatever.
Is what?
That than which no greater can be conceived.
Sure, the ontological argument, which is the defining of a God into existence.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm arguing, though. I'm only assuming.
Okay, but...
and there you have a problem. You're assuming something. So.
Oh, yeah. I'm just assuming his idea of what God is, that in which no greater can be conceived. It's just...
Yes, but don't you agree that there are other concepts of God?
Sure.
Okay. So, are you saying that only this one concept of God is necessary?
No. Okay, well, what I'm saying is that non-contingent concepts...
Yeah, you say that again without actually explaining it, and we're going to go nowhere.
The thing is that if something is non-contingent...
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, sorry, that was broke up a bit. I didn't hear you.
Well, I have a question here. How do you demonstrate that something is non-contingent?
Well, that's the point. It's not something that you really demonstrate. It's something that's just self-evident. If something
it's
or not something,
me, so
if there's non-contingency, if something is non-contingent, then it doesn't need any other reason to exist because it's non-contingent. If it needed another reason to exist or something else to exist,
okay,
it wouldn't be non-contingent.
so in this argument you are using non-contingent concept to simply mean axiomatic concept, that it is intrinsically true and needs no confirmation.
No, I'm saying that if something is non-contingent, then it doesn't need any reason.
That's what I just said.
To exist.
That's what I just said.
It doesn't need any reason to exist besides itself.
That's what I just said. That's what axiomatic means. That it's self-evident.
Okay.
Okay, non-contingent would be self-evident and self-confirming.
Sure. I'm just saying that if something is non-contingent, it wouldn't be non-contingent.
Well,
Did you say something?
Emilio, how is it? You said that you're not just defining God into existence. So tell me, how is it that you're not doing this? Because that's what it sounds like to me. You're saying that this God concept is non-contingent, therefore it doesn't need a reason. And I'm saying I don't understand what a non-contingent thing is. So you tell me.
Well, I was saying that. Well, I was just, first of all, the first thing I was trying to establish was that non-contingent things wouldn't be non-contingent if they had any other reason to exist outside of themselves.
And that's basically defining it into existence.
No, because non-contingent things don't necessarily exist. The first thing I said was
well.
Yes, of course. If the concept is contradictory, then it would be impossible. That's why I said that non-contingent concepts are either necessary or not, or impossible. So that's what I was trying to get across at first.
Okay, and so why is it that this convinces you that a God exists?
Because if your idea of God is in Anselm's idea, a being which is greater than.
Yeah,
Got it.
And it's omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, all that kind of stuff. I think you can call it a God. So if it's also a being that's non-contingent, now this is just a concept. The concept is something that is non-contingent, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. Then if this concept isn't contradictory and isn't impossible, then it has to be necessary.
Sure. Well, now that you've thrown all the omnis in there, we can demonstrate that it's contradictory. I mean, are you sure you want to toss all those omnis in there when that raises obvious contradictions?
Oh, of course. I mean, that's why I called the show. I mean, I haven't really gotten into the...
Sure. Anselm's Anselm's definition of God doesn't throw the omnis in there, by the way. It imposes a rational... Sorry?
I thought Anselm said that.
Anselm
would have to have their qualities.
Anselm's being that no other being can be greater than doesn't necessarily equate to the omnis. What it's talking about is it may equate to some of what the new theologians have rewritten the omnis as, which is omnipotent being the most power that one can have without being logically contradictory. But now you're just injecting things in there in order to avoid the contradictions that we're already aware of. For example, that omnipotence may in fact be self-contradictory on its own, but certainly in the view of other omnis, omniscience and omnipresence, etc., and omnibenevolence, there's plenty of contradictions that are raised, which is why this idea that maximal omnibenevolence may not even be possible, or maximal omnipotence, I guess that's kind of redundant. But in any case, I thought we got to the point earlier where you acknowledged that not understanding this and not having, or there being many God concepts that you personally can't discount, you can't demonstrate a contradiction for, wouldn't that put you in the position of accepting multiple mutually exclusive God concepts?
Well, it's well, what do you mean by what other God would there be? I mean, you just said like.
Well, you don't you
like Hindu gods?
Sorry.
I mean, what other gods specifically are you talking about?
There are many gods.
I'm not specifically talking about any of them. I'm saying there are as many potential God concepts as there are minds.
Okay.
Okay? And what I asked earlier is if you thought this argument only worked for the one God concept that you were talking about, and you said no, which means you think that it must also work for other God concepts, right?
Well, what I was trying to say with that is that if you have an idea, I don't think you can call them all gods. I think, sure, people call many different things gods, but my idea of God is just,
okay.
It's just my idea.
So the argument only works for the single God concept that you're talking about. Is that what you're saying? Because you said no earlier.
I was trying to say that, like, if I call something God, then I can't really call anything else God. So
what does that have to do with it?
Tell me all these other God concepts, that doesn't make sense, because to me, I've already established what God is. I can't call something else, God.
I'm honestly, Emilio, sorry, but I'm bored stiff right now because earlier you had said that this doesn't just prove your one God concept, and now you're backpedaling on that. You haven't come up with. I mean, there's no. What I was admitting was that what I was trying to admit was that if whatever meaning you have to any of those other gods is non-contradictory, then of course they necessarily exist. I mean, if it is contradictory for them and my God to exist, you just contradicted yourself again.
How?
Because you just went back to saying that the argument doesn't only apply to your God concept, but that it might apply to other God concepts as well.
Okay, I guess I don't really see how, admitting that other people's ideas of God, as long as they aren't contradictory, is
because it results in multiple different God concepts which are mutually exclusive. If you're going to hold to the idea of Anselm's, if you are going to hold to the Anselm's idea, there must necessarily be only one. Just think Highlander and you're done. But if you then admit that there are other God concepts, which as long as nobody can demonstrate a contradiction, which, by the way, not being able to demonstrate a contradiction isn't the same thing as there not being a contradiction. But as long as you're willing to allow those others in, now you are set up in a position where your God concept of the one and only God that could exist now simultaneously is just as justified as competing God concepts.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
That's it. That's what I mean by mutually exclusive God concepts. And as
Yeah,
long
of course,
an
it's
argument
mutually exclusive. If I admit one,
Emilio,
I just don't.
Emilio, an argument that can prove anything proves nothing.
No, it doesn't prove anything, though. It doesn't prove anything.
Sure. So why did you find it convincing enough that you almost became a theist?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if it's a non-contradictory.
No, we're not going back to
No.
that. Because now, I apologize, but now you're just going back and tossing out words.
Okay.
We've already discussed all the elements of this.
Well, when you say that two ideas are mutually exclusive, when
Yes.
you say two God ideas are
Yes.
mutually exclusive,
Yes.
which ideas are you talking about?
I'm not offering specific ones. I'm saying that your God concept, which is necessarily the one and only possible God, and a different God concept, which you also have acknowledged could possibly exist, the fact that the two of them exist, irrespective of the specifics of the second one, set up a contradiction, because there's two.
I'm not sure if
I'm
really
going
agree
to
with
send.
that.
I tell you what, we've taken so much time on this. Go off, think about it, write it up, construct the formal arguments, point us to one, whatever. Send an email or call back another time. But we don't know if the show's going to end in 20 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes. So on that note, I'm going to let you go. But thanks.
All right, see.
It's a little disheartening when someone calls in with an argument that they say convinces them that a God exists, and they can't even explain it without contradicting themselves and going back over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I don't understand how you can be convinced by something that you don't comprehend. It's like people will write in to say, well, do you accept string theory? And I have to say no. Because I don't comprehend it enough to actually say that I accept it. What I will accept is that to the best of my knowledge and the best of my ability to understand this, there are elements of string theory that represent the best explanations, the best working models that we have. But I don't comprehend it at a level to become an advocate of it or to march around saying, I'm now a string theorist. I'm largely ambivalent about the subject, at least until there's something more concrete. And so when people come up and say, oh, I just heard this, by the way, not only should you not be accepting arguments that you don't grok, but the fact that people are more and more frequently presenting arguments like that or like tag is very disturbing. Because what's happened is, first of all, I submit that there's probably not a Christian on the planet who is a Christian because of that argument or tag. Because neither of those two lead to Christianity. You have to inject something else afterwards, even if they were true. The problem of this is that there are famed apologists who have they're smart guys, and in order to fool themselves, they've had to engage in this really confusing obfuscation. And so you've got like Alvin Plantinga's modal ontological argument, which maybe 20 people on the planet can even understand, and I'm not even sure Plantinga is one of them. Well, all right, I take that back. That was a cheap shot. But the point is, what kind of God would set up a world where you can demonstrate conclusively his existence to 0.00001% of the population who has been fortunate, actually it'd be lower than that because you have to be fortunate enough to live in this time where you've got this wealth of philosophical, scientific, and mathematical information to back everything up, and then you have to be in the extremely elite in order to understand it. And curiously, despite that rather bizarre situation, of those who are in the elite, only a teeny tiny percentage of them have bought into this stuff. Now, I'm not necessarily making an argument from numbers. I'm just saying that that's absurd. It's just as dumb as the idea of a God coming to life and sacrificing himself to serve as a loophole for a rule that he created. I mean, it's just dumb. But so we got Max in Iceland. How are you?
No, I'm fine. Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Hi.
What did you say?
I said welcome to the show.
No, thank you. Well, I have to explain that I'm from Sweden originally, but now I live in Iceland, Reykjavik.
Yep.
Okay.
And I've been the question goes like if Americans know how religious they are, because when I see how politicians talks and behaves, and when they say stuff like morality comes from the Ten Commandments, or when they're having issue with gay rights because of scriptures, I see nothing of that where I'm from, and it would be strange if a politician would mix in religion with their lawmaking and the principles that they make.
Yeah.
So I know that you're atheist and everything, but does the general public understand that they're so like swimming in this religious thinking? It's you understand what I mean? Is there?
Yeah, I think. Americans we realize how religious the country appears to be. Okay, and what you're observing from politicians is sort of this American flavor of political theater. A lot of them talk like this, not because they particularly agree with this, but because they have to attract a certain segment of voters.
Yeah, exactly.
At least they think they do. So they're pandering to a specific demographic.
Oh.
But one of the things I would say is that I think Americans don't realize how non-religious we are.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and that's one of the reasons we're promoting the OUT campaign. We want to encourage as many Americans as possible to come out as atheists and let the politicians know that you don't have to pander to this small, very vocal, whiny minority religious group, because there's a larger majority of us over here who don't believe that stuff.
And see, I was going to say almost the same thing, but from a slightly different angle, and that is that I don't think most Americans actually understand how a tiny, well-funded, very vocal minority has managed to manipulate a lot of the government. Mm-hmm. But I also think that most Americans tend to think that they themselves are more religious than they actually are, because it's kind of a posturing. We're supposed to be religious. We need to be religious, but they don't actually involve their religious ideas in most of their daily life. They go to church on occasion. Some of them, actually, some of the people who I've met who claim to be the most religious almost never step foot in a church. It's just, no, God is absolutely important to me. And it's like they protest too much kind of thing. But I agree with what Jim was saying, is that I also don't think that they understand, not only do they think they're more religious than they actually are, but I think they think that the country in general and that we're supposed to be more religious than we actually are. I mean, this is a secular nation, the first of its kind, and we've just stumbled.
Well, and I mean, I'm actually surprised at the number of people who write to us on the TV list who suggest that don't you need to look at the teachings of the Bible? I mean, if you have kids, how else are you going to teach them, morals and values and stuff? And I read these letters and I think, really? Seriously? You think you have to have a Bible to teach morals and values? Because that's a horrible book to use for morality.
And on that note, Max, I apologize. We're going to try to get to as many calls as we can just in case the show ends.
Of course.
But I appreciate your call.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
And I think we've got two here that we can address pretty quickly. We've got Hank in New Bern. How are you?
Pretty good, you?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I was just wondering your opinions on the latest end of the world prophecy, again, from the same person.
Yeah, Harold Camping changed his date from May, when it didn't happen, to this Friday? It's the 21st, but I think it's this Friday.
Yeah, it's this coming Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was the spiritual rapture back in May, but this is the real deal on Friday.
Oh, boy. So, yeah, we're going to hell soon, I guess.
Yeah. I predict nothing will happen.
Wow.
Oh, something will happen. It just won't be anything like what Harold expects.
Yeah, nothing like...
Although, at this point, I don't know. I mean, it's really an interesting study, I think, that could be done about what goes on in the minds of people like Harold Camping. And he's by no means typical. But here's a guy who's repeatedly given dates. And by the way, yes, for the Christians who are out there, yes, I understand there's a difference between the rapture, which is what he's predicting, and the end of the world. I just don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care which fiction he's pushing this weekend. I don't care if you're a premillennialist or if you think the tribulation's coming or if I'm going to be stuck here for 1,000 years or whatever. The fact is, you've got a guy who keeps predicting the same thing over and over again, continually is wrong, moves the dates around, and then now has started making up new explanations of, well, it actually did happen, just none of you guys noticed it, because it's like a spiritual thing. And I think I saw a note that he's gone on to say that God is no longer saving people, which means every Christian who made an appeal to me between May and October, you're just wasting your time anyway.
Yeah.
I could hit my knees and pray. What's that?
I said, now it's too late for me to repent. Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So, yeah, I'll save you some marshmallows.
Yeah. Well, since, I guess, before I go, since you did bring up he constantly fails, do you think that he himself believes his own nonsense then, or is it just too profitable? Because I kind of think he's pulling it out of his ass just to make some bucks.
I have no idea what goes through his mind, really.
I don't know what goes through his mind. I happen to think that he believes it. It's just some people are crazy.
Yeah, well, I disagree a little, but then again, none of us really know for sure, so I guess it's not really worth presenting. I have no real evidence to disagree with you, so
I tend to think...
Have a good show.
Yeah, thanks. By the way, Hank, I tend to think that somebody who was just doing this for the money would have predicted some point much further out so they could make more money and not predicted the end or the rapture in their lifetime and gotten it wrong so many times. If you're really a con man, well, I don't know. Maybe that's the real gimmick.
Yeah.
Because he's managed to do it over and over again and still con people into giving up their life savings and travel around in Winnebagos to preach this nonsense.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what will happen on Friday. On Friday, when the rapture does not occur, there will be people who will claim that their prayers saved the world.
Yeah. We've seen that before.
Yep, that always happens.
So we got Rob in New York. How are you?
Hey, Matt, what's going on?
Not much. How you doing?
Okay, I got a quick question for you.
Okay.
I don't have too much evidence to back it up or anything, but I just want to get your point of view on this. Don't you think that the Protestants who actually rebelled against the Catholic Church were the ones who started the actual Enlightenment movement and started our industrial society?
Do I think that they...
Let's put it this way. I don't mean to interrupt you there. We all know that the Catholic religion is not Christian at all.
Well, they disagree.
It's Babylonian religion.
Okay.
Okay, well...
do you have, like, a question that doesn't make me laugh at nonsense?
Yeah.
This is not nonsense.
It is
How
nonsense.
is that nonsense?
It is nonsense because that's just the no true Christian argument. Because one person, the next thing you're going to say is that Mormons aren't true Christians, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't true Christians. Well, that's
They're not Christians. None of them are.
That's your opinion, which I couldn't care less about.
Are well read. I'm pretty sure both of you are well read on religion.
Yes.
Every single religion is basically the same.
No, every single religion.
No, they're not.
Ridiculous. If you read from the Greek gods on down, it's all the same.
No, it's
no,
not.
it's not.
It's all the same nonsense. If you
I'll agree it's all nonsense.
Except for the Christian Bible.
Why?
No.
Why? Oh, by the way, how can you say except for the Christian Bible when the first half of it is the foundation of Judaism? Boy, you're awful quiet. All of them except for mine. Woohoo! Yeah. Hey, Ben from Boston, you're on the air.
Good evening. I'm not sure I can quite match the color of your last caller, but I had a point to make about belief and evidence. You often ask callers what evidence they have that God exists. My position is that I don't think I would believe in an omnipotent God even if there were lots of evidence.
Yeah, actually, P.C. Myers has made the same point, that there's no evidence that could convince him. And we've had a number of back and forths on this subject. I think PZ's right, and I agree with your point. My thing is that, and I won't say that there's nothing that would convince me, because not only does that come off sounding closed-minded and impede conversation, but my thing is, if in fact there is a God, let's say, for example, the Christians are right, and there is an actual being, then certainly I would say that there is something that being could do which would convince me. I don't know what it is, and I don't know how this being would go about doing it. But it would be silly of me to deny that this God character, that with all the definitions they've got about its power and influence, etc., it could most certainly, actually, their idea of a God could force me to accept that it's true, beyond my will. So I won't say that there's nothing that could convince me. What I will say is that I'm not aware of anything that could, because no matter how preposterous something is, I cannot leap to supernatural justifications. But it may be the case that their God can, present such a compelling evidence that's beyond my comprehension, which would change my mind. Here's my problem with that, though. It doesn't appear to have happened for anybody else. And I don't just mean that, like looking around at the people in the audience. When you ask the average believer why they believe, it wasn't because of something that was extraordinary that could only be revealed by God, although there are some who will say that it was privately, this experience of God. It's always kind of tawdry what they come up with. So yeah, I'm on board with the I can't think of anything that would actually convince me. But when I get emails from people saying, hey, what would convince you? And it's almost always from Christians, and my answer is always the same. I don't know, but you clearly believe that there's a God who wants me to know he exists, supposedly. And certainly I think that if your God, as you describe him, exists, that God should be able to convince me and would know exactly what it would take to convince me. So you need to go pray to that God that he'll do that. And if you think that it's going to be done by argument, pray to that God, have him tell you what to say, and don't write me back until he does. Because if your God exists and he tells you what to say and you write me back, you will have the easiest convert in history. But if you write back before then either you're lying about your God, or your God doesn't exist, or your God doesn't want me to know it, in which case I can write you off in every one of those scenarios.
Well, if I may, a couple small points.
Sure.
You mentioned in the middle there that a powerful God could convince you kind of by force, as it were, like interfering with your brain or something. Well, that's really not very difficult. I mean, there are drugs that will do that.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I don't think that should count. In fact, an earlier caller in an earlier broadcast asked, would a divine experience convince you? And I think one of the hosts said, well, if it were just something subjective, like a moment of awe, then when it was over, I'd conclude that was just some little brain glitch and doesn't mean a thing. So I don't think that counts. The point you made about not wanting to seem closed-minded, I know it does sound unscientific for me to say there is no evidence, I don't think, that would convince me. But I don't mind saying that in this case, because I admit that I'm finite. I'm a finite being with finite intelligence, limited senses, imperfect rationality. So there are propositions just too huge for me to test.
Yeah, there is a difference between the methodological naturalism of science that you're advocating to say that, we are necessarily bound by naturalistic evidence. And there's a difference between that and saying, I will not be moved. I am resistant to this. And I understand the difference, and I don't think you're making that case, and I don't think PZ's making that case. I'm just saying that because of the way it's perceived, I phrase it differently.
I understand. And I think we agree. I mean, there are things an entity could do to convince me that it has superpowers. Yeah. But I would not. It would take a lot to make me go further than that. And there's a fun story behind it. I know you're short on time, so I'll leave it there.
We may be short on time. We're not sure yet. But
okay. Well, I have a fun little story. I'd like to hear it.
but I've got other callers waiting, and we might be short on time, so I appreciate it. Thanks for calling.
Okay, sure. Thanks. Bye.
Just in case, we've only got a couple minutes left. There may or may not be a dinner at El Arroyo, and it may happen at 6 or 7. And if there is, then any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come down and join us, and they'll put the thing up on the screen. We think the show's going to end at the normal time, is what they're telling me. That makes what I'm about to do even harder. Majeed.
Yes, sir.
I apologize. There are exactly 3 minutes left in the show, and
Yes.
I don't know if you want to do this because I think it'd be very unfair to you.
No, not a problem. I'll call back. I have all the time in the world now since that I'm unemployed, and I've been watching on your shows.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
there is.
Go ahead. I have several questions. One of them is, I was just going to make a slight comment that most of the time in any society, when someone says so-and-so is a Christian, so-and-so is a Muslim, they already have these preconceived, stereotypes. So that's for another call.
Show's going to end at the normal time, is what they're telling me.
My question to you is, sir, now, I was hoping that maybe I could ask also Ron, that you could have a Jewish person say that I agree with everything you say, but I choose to be a Muslim because I was born into Islam due to conditioning.
And I would say that you beliefs are not subject to simple choices. You can choose to act as a Muslim and practice Muslim traditions, but I don't see that beliefs are a choice. It's not like I could just choose to believe that Allah exists and is the only God.
I actually believe that, and that's what I was calling, hoping to ask for.
Then I would say
I actually believe that God and religion are very different things. If there is a God, religion cannot prove it. Religion is one big compilation. That's what I honestly believe. One big compilation based on anything. You know what I mean?
I'd say it's many compilations, but yeah.
Yes. But but the other thing is a person can be a Jewish atheist. So if they're a Jewish atheist and they would be fully accepted into the religion, what would their beliefs be? So they would say, for example, I'm a Jewish person, that I believe in the Jewish tradition. And then on the flip side, see, a person cannot say I am an atheist Christian or an atheist Muslim.
Right. That's
they might completely agree with what you say.
That's because Judaism is an anomaly. It's a cultural thing. There's, I think it's almost 50% of Jews in Israel are actually secular. So it's a cultural thing. The people who say I'm a Jewish atheist are saying that they're Jewish by birth and they may actually practice the traditions, but they don't actually believe them. That's why it's not a contradiction.
But a Christian cannot say that, or a Muslim like me, I cannot say I'm a Muslim atheist.
Well, you could say you're a cultural Muslim, and just like there are cultural Christians, and therefore you're an atheist, but you're going to continue to practice the traditions because you enjoy them or you see some value in them, and that's distinct from you actually accepting that they're true.
Of course, and of course the conditioning, the social group, this, Now, another thing is...
I gotta stop you. I gotta stop you because they're getting ready to put the credits up. That's why
I'll call back some other time.
Yeah, please call in next week. I think
do.
Russell and everybody's going to be here. Actually, I'll put you on hold just in case the show doesn't end.
Okay.
Cool. So thanks, everybody, for putting up with what was a really weird show.
It was weird.
There's the crew who are not responsible for this mess. This is just the public studio. There's the music and the graphics that you would have seen and heard had we had a clue what we're doing.
Yes.
Welcome to the best public access TV show in Austin, Texas. We'll see you next week. This will be exciting.